Imagine, if you will, a learning experience that is fun, hands-on, relevant and engaging. A learning experience where all students' needs are included and students have the power to control the path that their learning takes. Does this sound like the learning experiences that you embarked on when you were in for school? For many people, the answer to this question will be no. As a pre-service teacher, I endeavour to consider all of the relevant information in order to begin to formulate a working theory of learning that I can promote in my practice as a teacher. Sit back and relax while I take you on a journey back in time itself to understand how my framework has transformed from the different contemporary learning theories. The three dominant schools of thought in the psychology of learning across the 19th, 20th and 21st centuries, which make up the contemporary learning theory, include behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. These theories directly influence the pedagogical practices of teachers today, and they lay the foundation to which teachers develop their instructional models, strategies, and methods. We begin our journey with the contemporary learning theory of behaviorism. Behaviorism, also known as behavioral psychology, began in the early 1900s. It is a theory of learning based upon the idea that all behaviors are acquired through conditioning. Conditioning involves the formation of associations between specific actions and specific events known as stimuli in the environment. Behaviorists such as Pavlov and Skinner believe that our responses to environmental stimuli shape our behaviors. A behavioristic approach to teaching and learning dictates what knowledge the learners will learn, in what order they will learn it, and how it is to be learnt. Learners are required to concentrate on and remember key points, rather than looking at the information as a whole. If you are one of those people that say, back in my day, then you were probably taught by this method, where there was an emphasis on rote memorization along with drill and practice of basic skills. If we now journey forward in time, we can examine the theory of cognitivism, which replaced behaviorism in the 1960s as the dominant paradigm. Within this theory, it is believed that learning takes place in the mind, not in behavior. From a cognitivist perspective, learners actively process information, and learning takes place as they link new information to old knowledge, concepts, and ideas. Cognitive learning strategies focus on the processing of information in meaningful ways. The approach differs from behaviorism in that it considers the impact of prior learning and an individual's experiences to be important. It suggests that learning and instruction follow a series of phases, using the cognitive steps of coding, storing, retrieving, and transferring information. Lastly, we look to the learning theory of constructivism, which got its start in the 1980s. Constructivism asserts that people construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experiencing things and reflecting on these experiences. When students encounter something new, they will have to reconcile with it and their previous ideas and experiences, and possibly change what they believe, or even discard the new information as irrelevant. The theory denotes that students are active creators of their own knowledge, and to learn, they must ask questions, explore, and assess what they know. Like cognitivism, constructivism places importance on student background knowledge and experiences. Vygotsky has attributed a great deal of publications to the learning theory with his constructivist theory, social constructivism. Vygotsky, as also stated by Sigelman and Ryder, emphasizes the critical importance of culture and the importance of the social context for cognitive development. Vygotsky's concept of the zone of proximal development argues that students can, with the help of other students or adults, master concepts and ideas that they cannot understand on their own. These days, humanism and neuroscience are also recognized within the contemporary learning theory, as the theory has developed and evolved over time in accordance with scientific advancements and understanding of cognitive functioning and brain development. Humanism concentrates upon the development of the child's self-worth, while neuroscience delves into the biology of learning and how an individual's environment can affect the growth and development of the brain. Now that we have journeyed through the different contemporary learning theories, we can now journey to the present day to see how they have influenced my personal framework of learning. My preferred learning theories include a social constructivist theory, a cognitivist theory, and to a lesser extent a behaviorist and humanist theory. It is from my experience in the classroom and my interpretation and understanding of these adopted theories that I have constructed what I believe to be an effective teaching practice. These theories directly influence my preferred instructional methods, models, and strategies. I consider the social constructivist learning theory to be my most influential approach to learning due to its experiential and hands-on manner. I believe in creating a context for learning in which students can become engaged in interesting and relevant activities that encourage and facilitate learning. I have previously created a learning sequence for a grade 5 class that I had for a practical experience, using this particular learning theory as a guide. The learning involved a web quest that I had designed for students to practice and build on from their mathematical and science concepts, with learning outcomes retrieved straight from the Australian Mathematics curriculum and the Australian Science curriculum. The web quest, titled Building a Sustainable School Garden, allowed students to demonstrate their learning through scaffolded tasks that had been implemented throughout the learning experience. Students were able to build on their mathematical inquiry and investigation skills through the use of collaborative learning tasks. This task had resulted from my strong belief that a teacher should not stand in front of a class and dictate, but rather that they should guide students as they approach problems, encourage students to work with their peers to think about issues and questions, and support students with encouragement and advice on solving problems and challenges. The same as the approach, I believe it to be fundamental for students' out-of-school experiences to be related to the student's school experience, and this is why the learning tasks included the real-world scenario of students constructing a vegetable garden to help with the community's needs after the 2011 Queensland floods. Throughout the process, I utilised Gardner's multiple intelligences and Bloom's taxonomy. I found that Julia Caldwell's claim to be true, that these strategies were critical to the constructivist approach and particularly to student success in technology-enhanced learning environments. Although I found this approach to be of great benefit to some of the students, I did encounter some problems in meeting the needs of some of the diverse students who required a more prompted level of learning. This usually occurred from a limited time frame in which I had to spend on one-on-one assistance with individual students. This misalignment has provided me with the notion that learning theories can be used to influence each other and that no one theory can stand alone and prove effective for all of the different learners. In a later practical experience with a special needs grade 1 class, I have utilised a cognitive approach to learning in a lesson. The lesson involves students acting out designated roles with props to the pre-examined book Little Red Riding Hood as I read it aloud. Students then discuss the aspects to storylines, including the characters, the problem, and the solution, and related these aspects back to the book. Students were then presented with the book, Three Billy Goats Graph, and were asked to independently identify the different aspects to the storyline and to present them in the correct order. This task had resulted from my belief that students need to be taught how to break tasks down into smaller components. I also believe that students should be given the opportunity to gather information, retain the information, and then retrieve the information. It is by making these connections to prior knowledge that students can then apply new information and skills to new learning tasks. I found this approach to have its benefits in that some of the students in the class responded really well to the independent tasks and to the multiple means of presenting the information. However, not all students did respond well to the independent task. They found it difficult to stay on task and sequence the event without talking aloud to someone else. In this sense, this approach contradicted my preferred cooperative learning methods. With regards to behaviouristic and humanistic approach, I am a big believer in providing students with boundaries. Students should respect the teacher and their peers. I strongly believe in nurturing student well-being through positive reinforcements in the form of compliments, awards, and positive behaviour charts. I think student success, whether behaviour or academic, should be rewarded. But conversely, I also believe that students cannot be rewarded for all their right doings. It should be expected of students to do the right thing, and they should know this. My belief is parallel to that of children's psychologist Dr. Simon Beale, in that students also need consequences. They need to know that their bad behaviour will not be tolerated and it will not be ignored. Students need consequences to their actions, and like Skinner's operant conditioning theory, if a child's bad behaviour is met with an unpleasant consequence, then students should begin to realise that bad behaviours result in unpleasant consequences. I believe that students, however defiant, respect a teacher who can stand their ground and be consistent in their rulings. A teacher who is well versed will know how to deal with unpleasant behaviours without the need to raise her voice or disrupt a classroom too much. While I willingly accept this part of the behaviouristic approach, I strongly contest the notion that a teacher teach through methods of rote learning unless the situation warrants it. In my experience so far, I have only come across a small handful of these learning situations, including memorising multiplication tables. Evidently, no one theory is applicable to all students, and this is why I find Akara's statement to be the most accurate way to explain my philosophy. The student is at the centre of all teaching and learning. This means that, when planning, teachers start with the student and make curriculum decisions based on their students. At any one time, I can be utilising methods and strategies from multiple theories, and this is the result of finding the model that best fits the learning outcome and the students involved at that very time.